Hey guys, it's Biggs. Now, sitting with my planted aquarium today, but before we get to that, I gotta give a shout out for this. I can't imagine why anybody would ever want to have a shirt with my mug on it, but a good friend of mine, Nick, has been I don't want to use the word fan because nobody's a fan, but he's a friend and he's always supported, and he's been supporting me since day one. And he showed up randomly at my place and brought me this shirt, and he thought it'd be kind of funny, and I said, I'm going to use it in a video. I'm not really too sure I'm going to wear something like this when I go through an airport or something like this, but thanks a lot, Nick. I really, really appreciate it. Maybe one day down the road we'll have some merch. Maybe I'll probably use Nick and his guys to make the merch. I don't know. We'll see how it goes. Figure it out. But I can't imagine anybody would want a giant thing. Imagine a nice big 2X Biggs on you. Oh, that's sexy. But regardless, thanks a lot, man. I appreciate the love. Now, today we're going to talk a little bit about this planted tank. And in a bit different way. Now, I haven't shown you guys the planted tank for a long time. There's one very, very good reason why. One, it's overpopulated with these one live bears. These Xenotocas have kind of overtaken the tank. And the tank is in badly need of being completely redone. It's just I haven't had the time. With the farm and everything like that, winter came so early for us, as you guys have seen in some of the other videos. And we've been literally scrambling, trying to play catch up to get caught up to kind of what we call put the farm to bed for the winter. Because once winter really settles in, you got all the heated dishes, you got to bring water to them, you got to bring food and everything like that. And everything, they depend 100% on you. Versus in the summertime, as long as the animals got access to water, they can graze in the fields and stuff. So it's been a lot of extra work to get the farm ready for bed. So a lot of my projects inside are all kind of sitting there staged. I got all sorts of stuff coming up. I got bags of this stuff. This is for a build. I got bags of all sorts of other stuff, different types of medias, different types of things. The two tanks behind me are basically sitting empty. They're full of water and they're cleaned and they're ready to go. But they have nothing. I've got plans, but there's nothing immediately that's set up for what we're going to be doing with them. I'm not telling you guys anything. The rack of the 40 breeders over there, that's going to be going, and something new and cool is going to be going there. And I've kind of hinted at some of these things in the earlier videos. But this tank here has been, it's all low maintenance plants because that's perfect for me with my traveling schedule. It is running on some CO2. I do have a 20-pound CO2 tank, and it's running a little bit, and it's nothing fancy. The pair of live bears were just kind of a thing that kind of happened at one of the Aquarium Society auctions, and they got landed in here because the tank's unheated. That, I believe there's actually two pairs of them. There's mom, there's dad, there's mom, there's dad, and all the offspring from them have just overpopulated the tank. In there as well, there's 6 panda gares, Gara flavatera, I believe it's called, and there is a bunch of different assassin snails, and that's pretty much all that's been. I never really got around to figure out what I wanted to put in there. I was thinking Odessa barbs or something like that. But nothing really has piqued my interest as of yet of what I want to do. But what I do want to do is I want to take the tank right back to base and rescape it entirely and do another thing differently, because this entire third or 2/3 of the tank, that is one giant clump of bulbitis. It's massive. And the Anubias nana barterized growing up at the top there. I love my Cophifolia. I'd like to get it a bit better place. And then the moss, I think it's called weeping moss. I don't know, it's moss, whatever you guys got. That's all coming back. And that's really what the topic of today's video is. Now, the reason this tank hasn't been shown for a while is I've shown you in some of my other videos. Biggs is kind of quick and easy and does some of those things, takes a lot of shortcuts. And when it comes to a planted tank, you got those people out there that make amazing, amazing tanks. And I don't know if I'll ever be able to do it on that level just because I don't have that attention to detail or the time to really spend and individually watch each little thing, all the different micronutrients and dosing everything individually. That's just not my style at all. I've always been a kind of a quick, give it a couple of squirts after a water change and it should be good. And that's why low-level plants, easier plants, low-maintenance plants work good for Biggs, because Biggs can handle it, because Biggs is dumb. And to prove that fact, Biggs is really, really dumb, is Biggs did something really, really, really bad to this tank and almost killed the moss, almost killed the bulbitis. The Anubias were kicked back a little bit. The Crinum lost a lot of its leaves. It's coming back with a vengeance now. But I used a product that a lot of people use. It's in the trade. You buy it at every pet store. And people buy it to help control algae. Now, I never really had an algae problem. I just used it as somewhat for that purpose, when I get algae, it gets on the glass. You can see it in the backgrounds. I don't bother cleaning the sides or anything like that. And the Garas, they're not the best algae eater. They're just a good algae eater that goes in there, and they keep certain things good. But to do a properly planted aquarium and really control algae on a big scale, you need many different types of algae eaters to consume the different types of algae and stuff. And you got to be on top of it and diligent. And with the high-tech lighting and the good CO2, algae grows. Maybe I'm a little bit heavy-handed in the fact that I'm not here all the time. So when I am here and I throw in feed, maybe I feed too much, and that extra organic matter is going to break down and cause algae growth. So I used a product that was meant to help that. This product here. And I'm sure this product, if used properly and in proper dosages, works fine and probably does, because it comes from a really, really well-respected company. So it's definitely not bashing that company whatsoever. If anything should be bashed or any hate mail sent, it should be sent directed to this guy here, because Biggs didn't read any instructions. And literally, because it comes in a big jug, when you whip the top off the big jug, more comes out when I give it a quick pour. But basically, all those plants got kicked back so bad that I thought the tank was going to crash completely. Now, I wasn't sure what I'd done at first. And then it started dawning on me what I normally do. Well, mostly for fertilizer, I tend to use, this is older bottles and stuff, but I tend to use the Thrive products. And I bought a closeout of somebody that was getting rid of a bunch of the shrimp one, because I did have about 6 or 8 shrimp tanks going at the time, and I didn't want to, by mistake, accidentally put the wrong fertilizer in the wrong tank and kill off a bunch of shrimp and stuff, because they were thriving really, really well. So I tend to just use this one here for most of the tanks. Some of the tanks, when I was growing a lot of crypts or a lot of different Amazon sword plants or plants with a lot of red coloration or brown coloration, I would then supplement that with some chelated iron, or not. I don't know if it's chelated iron or not, but iron supplements and stuff like that, or liquid fertilizer. Chem has a great iron-based fertilizer. But getting back to this thing, I don't know if most people know what this actually is. This is actually an algicide. This isn't a fertilizer. They call it a liquid carbon, but it's glutaraldehyde. Glutaraldehyde is actually a biocide. It's not a good product. It actually has no benefits whatsoever as a carbon source or a CO2 source. So it doesn't really help as to what its primary thing it's being told is for. It will help with algae control if you use it in small doses like it says on the bottle. It'll probably help with that. But you can also do that by just using ordinary hydrogen peroxide. And let's talk about the dosages of using hydrogen peroxide in your tank, so you don't ever have to have something like this happen in your tank, what happened in here. Now, Biggs is still always going to be still that way. You know, the plants get kicked back, they'll come back, we'll try it again, try different stuff. Maybe it gives me an opportunity to try new plants, because I don't have tons and tons of tanks that have plants in them anymore. But I don't know. Biggs is Biggs. Still having fun. We'll see what happens with this tank. But today, let's talk a little bit more about liquid carbons. Glutaraldehyde is often sold as a liquid carbon or liquid CO2. And in the aquatic plant industry, people are selling this product saying that instead of using proper CO2 liquid and gaseous and injected into your aquarium, you could use this as a supplement. And that's just not a fact. This is actually a biocide, or I mentioned earlier, like an algicide. This is something they use in hospitals for cleaning products and stuff like that, sterilizing things. This thing is so concentrated and so strong in its natural form that it could actually be used to kill Ebola. I think Karen Randall said it best that there is no, in fact, liquid CO2. At normal air pressure and temperatures, if it is in a plastic bottle on your shelf, it is simply not carbon dioxide. Carbon dioxide is only a liquid when it's kept under very high pressure, such as the CO2 in your gas that you'd buy for your gas company that you keep in those big bottles, and you use diffusers to diffuse it into your tank. Glutaraldehyde is an extremely dangerous product if you're not using it safely. So always use it in a well-ventilated area if you do use it. Make sure that you're not inhaling the fumes. Make sure you're not pouring it directly on yourself. If you are, rinse it off right away. It's a known neurotoxic, and the longer you're exposed to these type of products makes the greater the risk of any sort of health problems associated with it. Now, I'm not a chemist, and I've read a lot of the paperwork and stuff like that about this product, and I'll leave the dosages and all that stuff for the experts to argue back and forth. But the amount that you would have to add of these type of so-called liquid carbons to your aquarium to get any actual benefits of the actual carbon would be amounts that could have disaster effects, not only on the tank, but also on your health as well. Now, if you actually follow the directions and read the instructions, something that is always recommended, but Biggs is Biggs, hard to change a Biggs, and he's an idiot, so he didn't, and he paid the prices for it. But I'm sure in very, very minute doses, it can probably be a very, very effective algicide or used for algae control as exactly the product is marketed for. After this meltdown, I think that's the last I'll probably be using that product because Biggs won't change the ways he uses them. And I honestly think there's far more healthy and better ways to manage algae control. And that's one that I go back to the old tried and true of using simple hydrogen peroxide in a 3% solution. Now, before you're going to use this, first you got to actually ascertain as to what type of algae you're trying to combat. If it's if it's green algae, about a 25 to a maximum of about 35 millimeters of a 3% solution of hydrogen peroxide for every 50 liters of water. Now, if you're trying to combat something like the slimy blue-green algae as pictured here, the dosage is decidedly less, maybe 8 or 10 to 15 millimeters of the 3% solution for every 50 liters of water. So basically, in order to calculate the dosage that you're going to need, you need to divide the total volume of your aquarium by 50. You multiply this result with the lowest recommended dosage for the 3% solution. Once measured, this solution can be added to your aquarium. I caution you strongly to make sure that you possibly add the solution in where your water return or where bubbles are happening from your sponge filters or whatnot, so as you're not pouring it directly on any fish or plant. And that way it'll spread throughout the water columns to its best. You're going to want to do this exact same treatment for about 3 to 4 days. And you may notice during the treatment that little tiny bubbles will form within the tank. That's completely normal. The little bubbles are just pure oxygen that are breaking off from the reaction of the hydrogen peroxide being added to the water. After this time period, you've done the treatment for 3 to 4 days, let the tank rest for a period of maybe up to a week and just see how the algae respond. Every different type of algae will respond a little bit differently. But once you're finished that first week of treatments or 3 to 4 days of treatment, you'll probably want to do a good quality water change, maybe 30 to 50%, and then just watch it and see how everything develops. For any really, really stubborn algae like hairbrush algae and things like that, I've used a small pipette, and I've actually gone in really, really kind of close and just put little micro drops and stuff like that directly onto the algae surface itself with fairly good success. I've used this type of treatment for algae for many, many years. I've honestly never had any issues. Hopefully these simple measures have helped you in some way. I always like learning. I'm never going to stop learning. Hopefully you have that same sort of mentality as I do. I wish you all the best. And as always, thank you very, very much for continuing to support, share. Let me know in your comments what you think, and let's continue doing it together. Thanks a lot, guys. See you next week. Take care.